Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. It is I, Brother Tobias, and in the last video, I opened New Recruit and my primary deck with all of my faction documents and wrote a 2 detachment list for you viewers to show you how I would write a list in order to play competitive Warhammer 40,000. As a reminder, the list is on screen right now in the description and contains the following. We are running a Reclamation force and a Fulguris task force detachment army. With Take and Hold, we have Marneus, Calgar, and Cato Sicarius leading a unit of Victrix Honor Guard, Captain Titus and the Wardens of Ultramar leading a unit of Blade Guard veterans, an Apothecary Biologis with the Seals of Reconquest, leading a unit of Heavy Intercessors, a Captain with Jump Pack holding the Liberatum Enhancement with a Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, 5 Scouts with Chainsword, Sniper, Heavy Bolter, and 2 Combat Knives, 5 Reavers with Graph Shoots and Grapnel Launchers, 5 Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs with a Power Fist and 2 Plasma Pistols, 2 Land Speeders, and 2 Storm Speeder Hammerstrike, one of which carries the Raptorial Cogitator core. And if you want to know what purpose each unit has, I recommend watching the previous video and then coming back to this one. My first 2 practice games with the list went rather well, so I decided to submit the list as is to an RTT, and I went undefeated. So yes, actually, I went to the 27th Battle for the Outer Rim. It's an RTT. We were 18 players, and I actually managed to go 3-0, undefeated. I didn't make first place. The first place orc player actually beat me by 3 points for the top placement, but in all fairness, I also have to say that if we were to argue about what 3-0 would be the best, I would honestly give myself the 3rd place, because the player who also went undefeated but is below me because of battle points, that player had way harder opponents than me. So I would actually argue that this player earned the right to have a higher placement than me if we were being pedantic. But in the end, I told you guys how I'm writing a list, and the list went 3-0, and I want to talk about what happened in those games. Alright, so the way I'm gonna do this is I have my written notes down here, but I will more or less just go over what happened in every single game. So, game 1, we played against Eldar with an aspect host type of list, and the way this actually went is our opponent had to play the Disruption primary, which says our opponent who started in this area right here. Let's make that a bit thicker so we can, yeah, perfect. So our opponent started in this line, in this area over here. It was hammer and anvil, so not a lot of space to the sides, and our opponent had to touch all of the terrain features, not just the objectives, all of the terrain features, and do an action, and then that objective is sabotaged for some points, and then our opponent also has to kill our units while they're on the objectives. But of course, our goal is Take and Hold, is just control the objectives, and if possible get an objective we didn't previously control. So we were pushing basically at all of the objectives, which were the 3 buildings in the center, which were the one here, the one here, and the one here, and of course the 2 home bases. So kind of like a little it's not a T, it's like an X, kind of like an objective X, but it's like, yeah, whatever. It's like a little cross, if you want to look at it like that. So yeah, our opponent went first, actually. So our opponent went out and started touching some of the objectives and doing the stuff. Me, I just went forward and hunkered down basically out of sight, except with some reactive moving stuff. I traded a Reaver squad away in this little building over here, and they all died to the Scorpions because of the fight on death. That was honestly really annoying. No, wait, one of them survived, but the opponent had more OC on it afterwards because of the one Corsair that was touching it in the corner. So that was a bit annoying, but overall the game kind of just went pretty much as planned. Calgar was staged in this little pocket here. Titus just settled down in the middle, and on my expansion objective I had the heavy intercessors, and our opponent started a big committed strike of like the Jane Zar unit and the warp spiders, and also the hawks that deep struck into my backline. All of them went and attacked the heavy intercessors, and they didn't even kill me. And in return, I interrupted and killed the banshees with the heavies, and actually got my OC9 triggered on the apothecary. That was radical. And then actually Calgar returned back to home base and then killed the warp spiders in the center. I actually took a lot of casualties because some shining spears and a banshee autarch squad went in here and attacked the Titus unit. I lost a lot of Blade Guard veterans in that combat, but in the end, Titus and like 3 remaining guys and Gabriel was more than enough to just clean house on everything here. It actually was so bad, our opponent had to then drive up the Wave Serpent and then disembark and attack with the Fire Dragons too. So the Fire Dragons actually shot and they didn't kill Titus, they only killed all of the Blade Guard. And then they went in and then they didn't even kill me, kind of, because I just held all of my saves. And I was prepared to be like fighting on death, but in return I just killed all of the fire dragons minus Fuegan. And at that point it was like all of my speeders were just jumping around and scoring points, while our opponent had just couldn't get anywhere close to the objectives, even with the reserves they still had. So one thing I decided to do, which was pretty paramount in playing the game at this stage, is I deep struck my captain in here and went for a 7-inch charge out of deep strike with the stratagem. And I also did the Reaver thing over here, which they only had 1 survivor, but it was actually pretty important because it blocked my opponent's reserves from coming down in my backfield or in no man's land. So the 555 Dark Reaper squads actually had no good spot to land. And yeah, overall this game went pretty well. What was the score? Let me check. I think, yeah, I finished with 94 points in this game, and yeah, it went pretty well. I think the disruption player has a pretty tough time actually scoring, especially because Eldar kind of aren't great at killing a big tough infantry unit. Like even with all of their damage free stuff, if I'm hidden in the building and the Dark Reapers can't shoot me and they just have to charge me, like sure, the Banshees and their anti-infantry ignore all of this -1 to wound stuff, but it doesn't really matter because a Banshee doesn't actually do that much damage. Like the XR can pop off, but everything has an invuln except for the Victrix, and the Victrix still have a 5 up against it. So yeah, a pretty decisive victory here in the first game. In the second game, we played against Adeptus Custodes, and it was a pretty basic list, but it was also really fun. It was Dreadnoughts and Shield Hosts, so there was a lot of damage on the board. Advance and charge Dreadnoughts with extra movement and stuff. And basically how this went, we were deploying in corners, so I was right here, our opponent was right here, and we actually went second in this matchup, but our opponent drew center ground, so they sent 1 Dreadnought into the center, while we send a Reaver squad to be stationed here. So our opponent charged the Reaver squad with the Dreadnought, so it was like this, and then there was the big Dreadnought, but we counter heroic with the Victrix unit and the Wardens that were behind them, because we can do an extra heroic, don't forget, with the Sicarius unit. And the Victrix guard failed the charge, but the Wardens actually made it. We killed the Dreadnought because it was on the center objective, which I spotted with the Lieutenant. And then I was able to use the Warden brick to just push out and engage a Warden squad over here to prevent them from going towards my expansion objective where I put my heavy intercessors into. And so because they couldn't just leave and get away, our opponent just had to like clap into us. Like the bikes over here went into the Victrix, and then after the Victrix killed a unit of guard that was over here. The bikes didn't really do a whole lot because I reactive moved out, and then our opponent had to charge the center because the Purge the Foe mission says they have to do stuff in the center, and our opponent tried really hard to score the center ground card, and I just denied it every single turn. Now, the meat grinder was pretty bad actually. We lost the entire Victrix unit over here at some point, and we only had like one speeder left because we lost one speeder a turn to all of the remaining units. But because the heavy intercessors in this building could just score for the entire game unmolested, and then in the end just move into the center for the big end of game and turn 5 clapback, that was awesome. So yeah, heroic intervention, pretty important. The Calidus assassin was honestly really annoying because we charged it with the captain and we died to the fight first. And then when the Calidus was in my home field, we charged it with the lieutenant and we also died to the fight first. So that Calidus assassin was honestly popping off, but no matter what, the home objective didn't give me any extra points for holding it in this matchup because it was Purge the Foe versus Take and Hold. And I honestly really like the Take and Hold versus Purge matchup because our opponent is kind of forced to play our game in the Purge matchup because we get rewarded for just holding points and our opponent has to kill, but they only get a kill for like one squad. Like it doesn't matter if our opponent kills 10 units or 1 unit because they only get 3 points per turn for the kills. And we can bring that back in the finals. Yeah, we can bring that back in the finals because we played against the Leagues of Votan, and that was a fun game. So the Votan went first, so I went second. The infiltrate guys were deployed here, and then they reactive moved behind this wall, and then reactive moved back. Excuse me, they moved behind my wall, and then reactive moved back. I charged them with the JPI. One guy survived, funny enough. Our opponent had some steeljacks here. Here are our reavers, and I did something that was just, again, a good idea, even though it might seem crazy. I used a speeder on turn 1 and the JPI on turn 1 right here just to push out our opponent's reserve. Now, our opponent has access to a 6-inch deep strike, and they did make use of that by deep striking onto my home objective and killing my lieutenant. He died. We also had a speeder here that was screening a bit, but we prevented the Victrix guard from being attacked, and the Titus unit was just too tough for the split fire from the 5 dwarfs that deep struck down to actually hurt us. So we returned the wardens back home. We deep struck extra speeders in to kill this land fort. Our opponent went for a move. I don't know what that move was. It was a bit based. This land fortress here actually charged my Victrix guard that was behind the center objective, not on it, behind it. And I was charged and tank shocked, and even though it tank shocked and exploded, I only lost 2 models in this exchange, and I killed the land fortress from full to dead because Marneus Calgar with AP4 power fists actually hits kind of hard. And yeah, once again, our heavy intercessors scored this objective for 4 turns in a row, and then I stickied it on 5 and moved towards my opponent's home objective. Now, unfortunately, the steeljacks that were holding it, we had a pretty big battle of not doing a whole lot of damage against each other, but our opponent actually managed to chip enough wounds through across some firefights here to have more OC and get a end of game score that was pretty well. But we had our speeders in the backfield for most of the game. I think I lost one regular land speeder in the center, but yeah, we had so many opportunities to hold objectives, and our opponent just couldn't kill all of it, to be frank, because that 10-man unit of Votan Terminators, the big Hearthguard brick, they deep struck down here, and they did kill a bunch of the Wardens, and they actually finished the job with the charge, and I rolled my first one on Titus, so I got it out of the way. Titus didn't fight on death, but it was fine. Our opponent captured our home objective, and the 10 Terminators were not just stuck there, so we had free reign to hold all the other objectives and then even pressure our opponent's home objective for a few turns. And even though the Steeljacks did clean up the Victrix and in the end the Heavies, they didn't score any points over there except for the last turn, which was completely fine by me because we got so many points out of this. So yes, with this we finished the overall tournament in second place, and I'm pretty happy with the way this list went. I think the units performed pretty admirably. The captain with Jump Pack, you know him from the tier list as Captain Copium. He didn't do a whole lot in this tournament. He died in every single game just due to some random stuff. But in the Custodes game, I didn't really need him because I was dealing with our opponents so efficiently. In the Eldar game, I used him as a throwaway screen to push something back. And in the Votan game, I came down, tried to get a charge, and it didn't work out. Yeah, I was really thinking about cutting him from a list. If you wanted to make this list a bit more optimal, just run a second JPI squad and spend the 15 points you get on the second Hammerstrike and give that speeder also ignore cover. But the captain still does a good job. I played a practice game on Sunday. No, on Friday. I played a practice game on Friday against Tyranids, and in that game he was amazing. He stole the enemy home objective. I killed 2 Pyrovores after surviving Overwatch on 2 wounds, and I just clapped them dead. That was awesome. The rerolls really helped there, and that was great. With that said, that's the end of the video. I know a bunch of you have been leaving comments in the other video telling me to show you how it went, and I couldn't hold in my excitement just to show you exactly how well it went. Yeah. With that said, courage and honor, Battle Brothers. If you got the models at home, please try this list. It was really fun. Just put your stuff on the objectives. If your opponent tries to get you off the objectives, they bounce off, and then you use the speeders to focus fire targets and just score points and be annoying in their backfield. The turn 1 deep strike of the speeders is just amazing. We march for McCraig.